goals today for you. The first one's to motivate you. The second one is to educate you, if I can. The third one is to network with the Land4Sale team. For those of you that don't deal with us, you can just have a chat to them and see if we're any good. And the fourth one is to increase your income. Is everyone interested in the last one? Great, beautiful. We're going to get on really well then. I have a mantra, and it goes like this, that money gives you freedom, freedom gives you choice, and choice, not chance, determines your destiny. Right? I'm not an advocate of destiny. I believe you make your own. So if you like earning a quid, I suggest we're going to talk for about 40 minutes or so. We're going to have a break, we can have a drink, and then we'll come back for another 40 minutes. So it was a very humbling experience last time. People were complaining that I didn't speak long enough, and it only went for about 45 minutes, so we thought we'd do a split chat. What I do invite you to do, though, while I'm speaking, is to interject and ask me questions. So don't worry about stopping me and putting your hand up or just saying, hey, Michael, blah, or you can politely call me Biv, I don't mind. So just interject and ask me a question as we go along. I'm not an expert, right, but I'm working on trying to be the best I possibly can in most areas of my life. So Sue's extremely complimentary, but I met my wife at the age of 16 and we're still together, and we got married at 23, so I've had a really great run. So I married the best person I've ever met, and I've got two kids that are my friends, 17 and 22. So what I learnt really early, that for me to be successful, I needed to make sure relationships were my priority. Money was secondary, or maybe even less than that on the scale of 1 to 10. So I realised that I was reasonably well educated, but I hated school. So when I got into the real estate industry, all of a sudden I learnt if I serviced people well, and I did it better than the next guy or the next girl, that I'd get paid more money. And I thought, shit, that's good, I'll do that. So I stayed in it a lot longer than I anticipated, and I did really well out of it. So I started bringing home some really big commission checks, and after that my wife stopped complaining. Because we had our oldest son around the time I got into the real estate industry, and she goes, oh, you'll never be home, and blah, 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 and all this sort of stuff, which was good. And she had a job that was higher paying than mine at the time. And we were sort of going through that change of life that you go through. And then the commission checks started rolling in, and the time was worthwhile. But the first thing that I noticed that I needed to do was I needed to be different. Because to be different is better than being better. All right, I'm going to give you a few one-liners today. I reckon one-liners are a very easy way to teach you. So, and my wife says I've so heard that before so often, but if it's a good one-liner, I'll keep using it because it re-educates me. And when I do these talks, what happens is I end up getting more out of you than you probably get out of me because I'll learn a little bit about your market. Is everyone having a hard time in the marketplace at the moment? Pretty much? Yeah? Hands up, who's having a hard time in the marketplace? All right, we're going to do a little exercise first. Okay, is that okay, John? If I move around, yeah? My friendly IT guru, he's from Melbourne. This is John Scarper, everyone. What this guy doesn't know about IT is not worth knowing. So he's an exceptional individual and a very nice bloke. So if you get time after the seminar today, have a chat to him. Did you want me? No? You sure? Okay. All right. Now, I got Joe to print off those questions. Has everyone read the brochure that went out? And for those of you that attended, I'm flattered, so thank you. Now, the questions on that brochure, what Sue and I did is we sort of had a bit of a look at what we thought we needed to do. Because this is a networking seminar, so we want to let people know how good Land4Sale are, but there's also a seminar to educate you. So what we're doing is we're giving back, right? We're actually giving something back. And without getting too esoteric on you, Sue and I are very much into karma. We think that if you do right, you get right. So and this is, if you think we're trying to sell you, you're dead right. It's exactly what we're trying to do, but we're making it clear up front because we think we're really good at what we do here. But we want to give something back to the guys that are actually keeping the industry afloat. Now, so I want 5 people to put up their hand who are going to be really honest with me when I ask them some questions. 1, 2, 3, 4, one more. It's hard, isn't it? 5, because you don't know what I'm going to ask you. Okay. For those of you that put up your hands, thanks very much. In a day, can you tell me how much time you waste in a 24-hour day? Either give me hours or minutes, I don't care. But be honest, brutally honest.
Working there, 3 to 4.
Okay. Next. 6, same, 3 to 4. 6, thank you. Anyone else? What was the other 2? Sorry? Half the time you're working? Thanks for being honest. I like you. You're all right. What's your name?
Brendan.
We're going to get on right well, you and I. Yeah. And?
3 to 4.
Okay. So this one's 3. All right. When I did this exercise for myself, and I do it often, actually I'll go back and explain something. When I started my first real estate business in 1993, I left a really successful company in Victoria called Barry Plant. And I was the sales manager in that company, and the 2 directors had broken their word to me about me buying into the business. And I gave them a 2-year window to fulfil their commitment to me. And on the day that I left, or the day that I actually resigned, I said to them, I'm going to leave soon, and I'm going to go out and buy a business within 24 hours. That's exactly what I did. Right, so I bought in a nearby suburb, but still an opposition agency, because we covered similar turf. And for 6 months, they worked on trying to send me broke, and they nearly sent me broke. But what I did was this. I had a mantra that I am worth 3%, and if you want me to sell your house, I want 3%, when everyone kept undercutting me. And they even did brochures and booklets out saying that if Michael Biviano comes in, we will beat his commission by 1%. That was going out. Right? So from that perspective, people call me a super salesman. I don't think I was a super salesman, but I was a really good salesman though. And I was politely persistent with a bit of control, PPC. Right? So I was never rude. I was a little bit direct, but I was always persistent. But I always knew, and I'm going to talk about something shortly, I always knew my product better than anybody else knew my product. So the opposition agents weren't as good. Is it arrogant? Probably, but I'd rather say that I was sure about what I was doing. Now, when I bought this business, it took about 6 months, and then all of a sudden, we went from doing 25 grand a month to 250 grand a month. Exponential increase, multiplied by 10. So the question was, do I know what I did to get a factor of 10 increase? So most successful salespeople, when you talk to them, and the guys here that are building reps, you'll relate to this, is that you have a great month, and what happens the next month? Anyone want to say? Shit, yeah, it just drops. So the question is, why does that happen? And what I did is I learnt the art to keep my months good every month. So therefore, not only did I become the top salesman in Barry Plant, I became the top lister in Barry Plant, and my real estate office, in a network of 149 offices, became the top office in 18 months. Because what I did is I watched everyone who was more successful than me, and I wanted to be what we call a moo, a master of observation. I don't need to reinvent the wheel, I just want to recreate it. So my mantra was, I need to learn off the guys that are doing it better than me, quicker than me, and facilitate the public better than me. So they're the people I started talking to. And one of the factors that I learned was time usage. Now, I would say, as a rule, that somewhere between here and here is probably right. I'm not saying the other guys lied. All I'm saying is when you analyse it right, anyone smoking here? Smokers? Any smokers? A few? Okay, well, not many. Okay. You're a dying breed, you smokers. That's a pretty funny joke. That's a double hitter. I'm getting better at this, John. Eh? Now, so... it's okay, I have the odd one myself, so don't worry. Now, so on that score, what I learned is that in a day, our non-productive time is increasing as we get older. And it's due to the fact of maybe kids, someone's sick, someone dies, all those sort of things. So therefore, in an 8-hour day, you might have productivity of an hour actually working on your business. How scary is that? So if you're pulling in a 50, 60, 70 grand income doing an hour a day, imagine if you actually got off your ass and did 3 hours a day. Imagine if we changed one thing, which is our mindset, and increased the amount of productivity in a day. And we call that DPA. Anyone know what that means? Not you. Dollar productive activity. How many hours of DPA do you do in a day? And you need to be real with yourself. Right? And there's another principle that I'll cover in a minute, KSI, which is knowledge, strategy and implementation. And I'll cover that quickly shortly. So, and what I'll do here is I want to cover some of these questions that we had. So in a day, if I say that we've got now 5 people here that have been honest, so we've got 12, 18, let's say 7, so that's 25, and so 3, 28. So 5 people roughly losing 28 hours in a day. Now, if I were paying your wages and you told me that, the first thing I'd think of is that's my fault as the proprietor. What am I going to do to motivate you? So we're going to talk about that shortly. So, because not everybody's motivated by money. Some people are motivated by the win. Some people are motivated just by a sense of excellence. There's a range of things that motivates people. So, if I asked for some comment on what motivates you, who'd like to give me some ideas? What motivates you to get up and go to work? Is that just necessity? How many people it's a requirement that you've got to earn a quid? Okay.
Family?
Yep. Good. Yep. Increase the standard of living. Yeah, for the kids. Great. Anything else? Sorry? Achievement. Yep. Great. Yep. Like that. Sorry?
Better lifestyle.
Yep. Good. All right. What happened for me was I had, in Melbourne, we used to, when I bought my business, we'd have a yellow authority form. And I always had the glee of the other agents sitting in the street waiting to go in for the market appraisal and me walking out with the yellow authority. So I'd walk out with the folder and I'd just, don't bother, buddy. And I'd get in the car. Now, that motivated me for ages, as sad as that might seem, but it kept me really going. And the night, when it was at 7 o'clock and I knew I needed to be home, but I had another 5 or 10 calls to make, I'd think of that yellow authority form and the glee I get out of that, because for me that was like sex. I went, oh, it just rocked my boat. Right, so, and I go, right, I'm going to stay back another half an hour and I'm going to make more calls. While all the other offices are quiet and dormant, and then I was the first guy in our area to open Sundays. Nobody opened Sundays. So we opened our offices on Sundays. Let me tell you, it took us about 3 months because repetition is the mother of skill. The public didn't know that we were open and it took a while. But then people started coming in. And what happened is we weren't making any sales. We were getting listings though. So therefore my listing bank went up. So you'd open up our Mount Waverley office, you'd open up the local paper. I had 10 pages of 50 properties every week because people were listing with us because they believed one thing, that they would get the best service from us. And that's why they came. So I got my 3%. And I'd say to people, if you want me selling your product and you want me auctioning your product or whatever, 3% is what I want. And I can give you one of my junior guys who's still excellent and I can do it for 2 or 2.5. What would you like? Well, I'm going to give it to Joe Bloggs because he'll do it for 2 and he's as good as you. Do you really reckon he's as good as me? So I'd go through that banter. And then that comes into a completely different genre then, with mentality, which is sincerity selling. It's when you sell sincere and you look at people like I'm doing you now and you know I believe what I'm telling you. And what happens is you should never take any instruction from anyone who hasn't actually done it. If you're getting people to come in and help your staff or build your business or give you advice, unless they've done it, do not hire them. Because I can give you a textbook and you can go and read it yourself, because that's all they're doing. Now, so does everyone sort of agree with that concept? So if you want to increase your income, the first thing you need to work on is your time bank. Because God only gives us a finite amount. And how many minutes, seconds or hours you have, I don't know, but there's only a finite amount in a day. So there's some of the suggestions that I've given people is that if you start at 9, I suggest, and you're going home at 5, you might find, if you're wasting that amount of time, There's a few ways you can go about changing your behaviour. The first way is only work 4 hours a day. Have a sleep in if that floats your boat. Go home early if that floats your boat. But for the 4 hours a day you're working, be bloody productive. And I'm going to give you the 48-hour, 24-hour rule. And that is, I say to Sue, redo your diary every 24 hours, 48 hours ahead. Redo your diary every 48 hours, 24 hours ahead. Has everyone got that? Right. And so therefore you should not leave your office before making sure your diary is full for the next 48 hours. Rejig appointments, move them around, prioritise your clients, see who's worthwhile spending time with. And they used to call me Watch Biv. I used to go into an appointment, early days, put my watch on the table and go, right, I've got an hour. And they'd always ask me, what are you taking your watch off for? So I've got an hour because I've got another valuation, I'm really busy. So just so I can keep an eye on the time. So they already know, I've already set the standard. Because the only thing I've got to sell anybody is that 4-letter word, time. So utilise it wisely. The simple thing that you can do is if this behaviour continues, then A, you don't believe me, or B, you don't want to change. But if you want to change your income, this is the first thing that needs to change. Does everyone agree with that? Yeah, you see it? Okay. Now what will happen is your whole lifestyle will change, because then you'll have more time for your beloveds at home, you'll have more time to do recreational things, and you need downtime when you're selling. Your mind needs to be dormant for 5 to 10 minutes a day with no shit in it. Nothing. Just veggie. And my favourite thing to do is watch Green Lantern and Batman cartoons. And I'm serious. And my kids are 17 and 22, and guess what we do? My wife will tell you, don't we, Dale? We watch Batman and Green Lantern cartoons because we love them. And it's veg and escapism because I love heroes. So from that perspective, it brings me to another point. The second part of you changing your behaviour to increase your income is grab yourself a mentor. It doesn't have to be a paid mentor, it can be, but grab yourself someone that you look up to and that you can banter with and that will be honest with you. That will say, no, Michael, you're not doing it right. Or what about this? Or what about that? You need someone that you can aspire to be in your life. Because the whole goal is to strive. If you really think about what you do day to day, you're striving to be better, even if you don't know it. Because and when people, unfortunately, commit suicide and all those sorts of things, which is extremely sad and creates a lot of sadness in the world, is that generally they've stopped striving. Something's gone astray. So the art to life is to strive. And people go, you can be really materialistic or whatever, Mike, and I go, it's not about that. It's not about how many boats I've got or cars I've got or whatever it is. Nothing to do with that. Money gives you choice. And then there'll be a day where you can go to work or go, no, I don't want to go to work today, which is what I do often. And then your kids get a choice. And if you're worried about leaving your kids a shitload of money, don't. You should be you should be concentrating on giving them as much cash as you can when you go, and then teach them how to use it. And teach them how to multiply it when you're gone. That's your responsibility, in my opinion. So when you talk about increasing your standard of living, the goal is to provide the best that you can for your family, but give your kids, does anyone here want your kids to work harder than you? Great. That's how I feel. I'd like them to have a better lifestyle than me, and I have a pretty good lifestyle, right? So my goal is to give my boys as much money as I can when I go, make sure that they're responsible, do a little bit of philanthropic work, give back, and then multiply it for their kids. Because there's no point me busting my ass over these 30 years if they've got to work harder than me. I don't sort of get that. So we came from the caveman to now, and all of a sudden we're living better, we dress better, we drive cars, we do all that they never had, 1,000 years ago. So therefore man has had the aspiration, or mankind has had the aspiration of every generation improving. We should have the same. So if you believe what I've said up till now, then from today you can start, because major change is instantaneous. The first thing to change your income is you need to change your mentality. And if you don't like or you can't change how something is, change the way you think about it. So if you don't like your job and you're really pissing your boss off or whatever it might be, or you are the boss and you don't like it, sell your business or get out of it. Go do something that you love. Any questions up to this point? Is this okay, Sue? Yep, all right. Now, I have a YouTube channel that my friend here convinced me to start. And one of the things that's been really, really important, and we've had a lot of questions on, is networking. And I am the only agent or ex-real estate agent that I know who is also a trainer that says that prospecting's a pain in the ass. Anyone agree with me? Who likes prospecting? It is the worst thing that I've ever done. Whether it's cold calling, door knocking or whatever. I don't know well enough to swear, but I've got a few words that really describe it. I've got to tell you, I hate it. So what I did is I thought about networking. And my goal in my business was to get prospecting down and get networking up. So when I left my business, people still had a brand awareness of Michael Biviano, not Stockdale and Lego. Because I promoted my brand, and my brand is me, not that. That's just a subtitle to me. I'm the brand. So from that perspective, what we did is we started sponsoring all the art shows, local kindergartens, and all the things that mattered in the community. So people would refer to us, and all I wanted was to get on the shopping list. I never asked people to give me the business. I said, if you get me in, most likely you want to give it to me. But I've got to get on the shopping list. So, and no different to us doing this networking dinner, the key is to get on the shopping list. Everyone agree with that? Right, so because you've got to get in front of people. And if you're half decent at your art, the more people you get, even if you're not good at it, if you're keen, because enthusiasm always wins, if you're keen and you get in front of twice as many more people than your opposition, the chances are you'll be more successful. Does everybody agree with that? Then that comes back to this. What am I doing with my time? Always back to that. You'll find this is the one constant all the way through. So therefore, if you're at work and unproductive, I say to you, go home. Spend it with someone that you like being with and do something else. But at least while you're there, work. Now, and our business grew exponentially. Exponentially it grew. And when I looked at it, I thought to myself, the goal here is not to make the media tycoons wealthier. The goal is to make me wealthier. So I can pay my people and run my business and have the choice to buy what I want. And have the choice to come over and see my friend Sue when I want. And come and speak to people when I want. So with this event, I'm getting nothing for it. I do it because I love her. And she's one of the most decent people I know. So from that point of view, I do it benevolently because of that. And for no other reason than it's good for her and good for me, and I get to meet a whole lot of nice people, and my wife gets a trip over here too. Great. Everybody wins. It's pretty cool. The next thing is, so networking, we're all cool on that. So I understand the building reps relationship with this business. I understand the building reps relationship with the building business. So as this goes along, if you want to interject and ask me questions about how you can improve, and I know there might be some opposition here, etc., but...
Are you going to talk about YouTube?
Sorry? Yes, I am. Yeah, I am. What's your name?
Grant.
Thanks, Grant. Anyway, so what eventuated, John was on me about this YouTube channel. So we started. And what I started getting an idea because I'm one of the old gold Nokia boys. I had one of those gold Nokia phones not too long ago, right? So I've just been endowed with an iPhone. So aside from breaking the first one because I threw it against the wall, I'm sort of getting the hang of it now. So it's taken me a little while, but I learnt from John that with media in general, you need to be consistent. And that was talking about branding and those sort of things. Sorry, that's where I was going. Anyway, that's Dan's fault for a late night last night, Dan, and too much booze. All right? I'd just like to blame you. Very good cook, by the way. Anyway, so what happened with that, Grant, was this, is that John taught me, we went through and had a look at YouTube, Instagram, all those things that my kids are really aware of that I wasn't. And John tells me today, we've run the YouTube channel for 6 weeks. We've had over 50,000 views in 6 weeks. Pretty cool. blew me away, right? And he said to me, he goes, the reason that's happening is because we're consistently putting new stuff and material on YouTube all the time. How many times a week are we doing it?
About 4 a week.
Right, okay. So therefore, repetition is the mother of skill and consistency equals success. So he's re-taught me my mantra. So from that point of view, that's what I learned. So you need to be consistent in your behaviour. And as and this is another thing, that 13A Miller property, this is a good stat, Grant. I'm selling a house for a mate of mine, which is next door, and I haven't sold a house for 14 years. So he built our house, great builder. And because I'm a property developers and builders are generally like Italians and Greeks. They either don't get on or they're always in opposition in some way, right? So, and that's a bit of a joke at home. But him and I got on like a house on fire. And every time I'd give him a question where he's at, he was always ahead of me, right? Anyway, so we put this on. I said to John, let's just wing it on YouTube and I'll do a walkthrough. I haven't done a walkthrough in 14 years. We'll do a walkthrough. How many hits have we had? 1,300, 1,400 in a week. Gone nuts, right? Just in our local area. So it's the power of that media that's enhanced the way I think about business, but it's made me think that networking is the go. Because YouTube for me really is a networking tool. It just gets me out there. Right? So, and John's looking after the YouTube and the Instagram and all the other stuff, and the Facebook and all that stuff, which is great. But what happens though is if people want to check on me, or they want to deal with me, or they want to buy product off me, and we've got a big development coming up in Melbourne, people will go on and scan and go, hey, this guy's okay. Or hopefully they'll say that. And he's got some credibility because he's got 22 videos on YouTube within 6 weeks that have some merit. And I don't just talk about money. Money's the least thing I talk about. I talk about doing the right thing, getting out there, working hard, networking. And wouldn't it be nice if everyone in this room could walk out of here and only deal with the people you like dealing with? Yeah, I'm nearly there. That's my one goal. Because I was working in real estate thinking, this is really giving me the shits. Aside from the other agents trying to beat me all the time, the public were hard work. And sometimes they're hard work because they don't know, and your job might be to educate them. And that's why you need some knowledge, and we're going to cover that in a minute.
Michael, can you talk a little bit more about DPA?
Yeah. Okay, do you want to ask me some questions?
Yeah, what does that mean? So, like, for a building rep who's sort of working all day in the office,
Okay.
how does that...
Okay, I've got some good questions in. Any building reps here, can you give me a normal day? Does someone just want to speak about a normal day? What time you start and what you do in the day? Anybody? No? No one does anything? Yeah, 8:30? Yeah. What happens? What do you do when you get in? Yeah, what do you do? Yep. Go through the day? Yeah. Yep. Yep. Right.
And then generally try and get some sales calls done before 10 o'clock.
How many sales calls before 10?
I like about 10. That's what's supposed to do. Probably not, maybe 3 or 4.
Okay.
Sorry, Mike, can you repeat that? So you didn't get that at the back.
Oh, well, 10 sales calls before 10. Okay, so on that score, with dollar productive activity for me means this. The first thing is do all your shit work in the morning. And for me, shit work means sales calls I hate, so I do them early. So I get in and the first thing I do is sales calls. Now, I never deal with a client where I don't know how I can contact them. So whether it's email, whether it's a mobile number or a landline number or landline numbers, plural, right, I get all that detail. And what's happened is that the one negative, Grant, to YouTube and all that stuff is the interaction's gone. It's gone. That personal contact is out the window. So, and especially if you're of Asian background, because they're just used to this. And let me tell you, in Melbourne, we've got a lot of them, and they're great. They've made our market. In the area that I'm in, to digress, I'm 54. When I was born there, 2% of the population were European, 98% Anglo. 58% of my population in my area was Chinese. in 54 years. Get ready, because they're coming. And Indians are next. So we'll talk about that cultural diversity stuff shortly. So DPA, do the shit work early in the morning. So my goal always was, depending on the start time and depending, you've got families, etc. But if we say that the day, so you've got 8, let's say 8 till 5. I am a big advocate on this. Lunch, because I'm a wog, I like to eat. Right, and I like a glass of wine. So the one thing with that is that I always generally, it's very rare for me not to have lunch, even when I was super flat out. Because I'm brought up in the traditional breakfast, lunch, dinner. And it is the one time where I honour myself by doing that. Because that's what you're doing. When you have lunch and you're sitting there, you know, the second most intimate thing that you can do with somebody is share a meal, in my opinion. So I always have lunch, and I always make time for lunch. Even if it was in the car, right? Even if it was in the car, there's one fly here, Sue, and of course you sent him my way. Right? So is have lunch. So lunch is super important for me. The other thing is that I'd never thought that 9 o'clock was a great start time, because I needed to start my day before the people I wanted to contact started their day. Right? So when I'm talking about, I've got a particular client, and I'll give you a list of questions, but say, I've got a client, I want to know the accessible numbers that he's on, or she's on, right? I want to know where they work. I want to know how many in their family. I want to know, you know, nationality, bang, I can keep going. And it's interesting because even at the open inspection that I went to, the first one, is they're not categorising their buyers. I want to know if it's an Indian family because they might have more family coming over. I want to be their go-to guy. So that stuff's important. And let me tell you, every nationality on the planet wants one thing, a high level of service, and pay the least they can for it. That's okay. So offer the high level of service first and then work on the second thing later. So I ask all the right questions. So what I do is in this period of time in here, this for me was networking or prospecting and a bit of planning. So I get in and say, for instance, at one point when I was at Barry Plant, I was managing up to 20 listings. So you could say that 3/4 of those were auctions, which are a harder campaign to manage. And I did it without a PA. No PAs, no nothing. Just did it all by myself, no problem. And every time I'd had a communication with a client, I wrote it down. What I spoke about, when I spoke and what time I spoke. So I document things, just in my own gibberish, so I could read it the next time I followed them up. And what happened is that I learnt that repetition is a skillful art. So my mornings were always about that. So I'd get in, and I like my coffee. So I'd get in, I'd make myself a decent coffee, I'd do all that, I'd have my breakfast, and when I start my day, so by the time the people I need to contact, they're in at work by the time I'm super ready. Super on I was. Because it took me about half an hour to wake up. By the time you muck around and put the boards out and open the office and do all that sort of stuff. So 9 o'clock had come, I'd hit the phones hard. And not being funny, I wouldn't do 10 calls in an hour. I'd do 30 to 40 to 50. I'm on. Hi, how you going, Rolf? Good, yep. Blah, 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 I've got this in. Can I email you or send you some information, etc., etc. And I'm on and I get through. Because I don't want to be laboursome in relation to my prospecting or my follow-up, because it's hard work. So I would get as much done as I can. And when I deal with a client, I always tell them what they can expect from me. So if someone gives me their property to sell, or I'm going to deal with actually I'll give you for instance, if I was a building rep and I had 5 really hot clients, and I know that if I don't facilitate a land purchase soon in an area that they desire, I might lose them. Anyone been in that boat? Right. Well, whoever your land brokers are, and I'm doing a sales pitch again, is you get smitten with someone at Land4Sale, and before the stock gets a reduction in price, or before the stock hits the market as a brand new item, get onto them. Say, listen, feed me, I've got a red hot client right now. because communication is the skill. And generally speaking, the reasons why we don't communicate is A, we can't be bothered, or B, we haven't organised our time properly. So what you've got to do is you've got to structure yourself, and I'll talk about that a little bit later in relation to goals. So if you've got 30 clients on your books, you know that you're going to have a fairly high attrition rate. So if you're lucky, you might sell out 5 of them. And if you're good, you might, and if you're lucky, you might do more. So from that point of view, what I would suggest is in the morning you have a run and you have a list. And what you do, you should, when you are following people up, or you've got particular buyers that want to build, right? You want to nail the land agent in relation to that, because they, to a certain extent, are going to facilitate your income. So I have just a quick question on this score. How many people that buy a house have a concern about where the house will be built? Like what suburb? Are they happy with the zone, or are they happy more with the suburb? Do they pick the suburb first? Yeah. They do. Okay. All right. That's different to what I've heard. So that's good. That's good though, because that's what I thought. No, everyone's agreeing with you. They're agreeing with you, so that's good. So from that perspective, so what happens if these guys have got a particular estate in a suburb that you want, you should be nailing them so you get first cab off the rank. Because what's going to happen, and I'm going to digress, so if I get off track, John, pull me back on like you do. Right? What happens is that your economy is not in a good state. As of this morning, your state is ranked the lowest economically in Australia, as of this morning. Not good news for you. And unfortunately, for those of you that heard me in April, I said that this was roughly going to happen. Not rocket science, just got to read all the guff. And that comes back to time. Get educated, be knowledgeable about what's happening. Now what's happening is that your infrastructure costs are far too high. They're just unbelievably exorbitant. Your planning process is screwed, right? You need a real overhaul with your government system in relation to the planning process. It is the worst I've ever seen. And I've been doing this a while. I've done multiple subdivisions, multiple developments, and in Melbourne we always complain, but let me tell you, I come here and go home and kiss the ground. Like, it's that different, all right? So, I can get 150 house development rezoned and done in a 2-year period and started. It's a no-brainer. So from that perspective, we've got some problems. So therefore, if we can't change it, and at this level we can't, unless you want to become a politician, which is not advisable, but because they're like AFL coaches, they don't last that long generally, right? So on that score, what happens is that I've got to say to you that the way that you go about doing your business has to change. So you need allied partners, and that's where networking comes into play. So you need to know whether Sue and the guys here have got a price drop coming up on an estate and you've got a buyer that's $5,000 away. In country Victoria, we are in an area called Gippsland where we have our power stations. We've done a lot of business. Do you know we'll lose a deal for a $200,000 block for $500 in adequate savings in a year? $500. The banks knock it back. Get ready, because if that's not happening here already, it's going to, and it's on its way. Because the economic feel here is not necessarily good, but your property values have dropped, your land values have dropped, and your valuers are getting harder. So what does that mean? You guys need to be smarter. You need to offer a better service. You need to find out when the blocks are getting reduced. And to be blunt and to be critical to developers here, if developers were smart and had their shit together, they wouldn't wait for 12 months to drop prices. They'd be doing it yesterday. Because we deceive ourselves, and I don't know, there's a story that Sue and I share, a personal development coach, and there's a story, I'll finish up on this shortly, Joe. There's a story, our personal development coach said to us, the 2 things that have resonated with me and stuck with me since I met him 24 years ago is this. When they were living in a concentration camp, his mother would feed herself first before the kids. Why? So she remained healthy to look after him. Because if she died, no one else could look after him. And the other thing was that Adolf Hitler, 10 years before he got elected, wrote a book called Mein Kampf. And he said in there that he was going to kill the Jews. No one believed him. The Jews never left Israel, never left Germany. They stayed there, and then they were getting slaughtered. So, and he went through Poland and France and started picking them all out. Now, the reality of that is that sometimes we don't want to believe when the bad is coming. We want to look away and just ignore it. So, in that case, when I was here in April, it'd be interesting to see whether they have any effect on the people that were here and whether they've done any better. Because I made all my money in the recession periods. So what Sue said in that brochure is true. I did better than anybody else and made more money when things were bad in Melbourne than when they were good. Because when they were good, I was a bit slack. The boat was just sort of flowing along okay. Right? But when things were getting tough, I was looking ahead. So I'm not recession-proof, but I am recession-proof planning. So on that score, you need to be looking ahead to say, where am I going to get my income from? And that's what you need to be doing now. So your allied partners, whether they're the builders, the land agents, etc., you need to be involved with them at an intimate level to find out what's going on. Because what will happen here is sooner or later, the developers, as they've been doing since April, been dropping prices. And I've had a look since I've been here, they're starting to drop the prices and they're catching up, but they're always playing catch up. They're not getting ahead of the game or ahead of the J curve. They're not getting ahead of it. And sooner or later, what will happen is the market, as the developers drop their price, the market starts to pick up with it. And then a few people come back into the marketplace. Now, and then the other thing that happens here is that building reps, I think you get referral fees too here, building reps, yeah? There will be a point, and I don't know when this will be, that will diminish. Because you can't keep dropping land prices and paying building rep referrals. It just, economically, it doesn't stack. So I say to you, while that's happening, take advantage of it. Because I don't think it's going to happen forever. So in that global land purchase, building, etc., my advice to you, generally speaking, is you need to up the ante with your networking and your servicing of clients in the morning. Now, we're going to take a break shortly. We've been going 45 minutes already. Okay. Gee, I talk a lot. Yeah. So at 1 o'clock, this is what I call my jolly time. I always do this stuff here. So by the time I go home, I'm in a good mood. So I do my selling, my listing, whatever it might have been, I do then. So, you know, if you're going to do contract sign-ups, it's always good to do contract sign-ups later in the day because it always feels good because you know you're getting paid. And there's nothing bad about signing up a building deal and going, I just made $5,000 out of that, to yourself. Because you need to bless yourself when you succeed. Because there is a little bit of an Anglo-Saxon thing that we want to be humble when we succeed. That's good, but you need to also do that. You go, shit, I did a good job there. I'm worth the $5,000. Because those people are better off for having dealt with me now. Does that make sense? So my day is fairly simple. Has everyone heard about an ideal day? You heard that caption, that there's an ideal day? Right, okay. Well, an ideal day, agents have a rhetoric that an ideal day, and I call it rhetoric because it's bullshit to me, about having an ideal day that is so regimentally planned. And all the guys that pontificate that never do it. And I used to sit there and go, what the hell's going on with this? But I do have ideal behaviour though, because I don't like the diary saying, I've got to do 45 calls between this time and that time. I just know that when I get there, I'm on, and I'll do as many as I possibly can. But so I have more ideal behaviour mentality than ideal day mentality. So I'll try and do the best I can every day. And some days I might only get 10 calls in, and some days I might get 45 calls in. But I don't, because what happens is if you critique yourself far too hard when you are putting in an effort, it'll eventually beat you. And that's why I don't do that for me. And that's why I pat myself on the back when I do something good. So is everyone sort of clear on that? So I do all my money-making activities are generally in the afternoons, even today in my developing game. When we do contract signing with the lawyers and all that stuff, it's generally in the afternoon. Why? Because floating my boat, because I'm making plenty of money. It's good, right? And all the work, it took me 5 years to get a development up and running, and I'm going to sign the contracts. I want to go home rocking. That's why I get so many speeding fines. So, you know, I'm that excited. So on that score, that's just it. And it's an easy breakup. I do all my dollar productive stuff where I'm making my coin in the afternoon. Now we're going to take a 15 minute